The first 30,000-pound GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator slammed into the roof of the IRGC Central Command bunker at nearly 720 miles per hour. It ripped through 30 feet of reinforced concrete like it was nothing, like a steel spike tearing through thin drywall. Just 3 seconds later, a second GBU-57 dropped straight through that same opening, blasting deep into the underground core. The shockwave hit so fast and so hard that the entire facility was wiped out before a single alarm could even go off. High above, hidden in the dark sky, the B-21 Raider moved like a ghost, its radar signature no bigger than a golf ball. In one silent move, it crushed what was supposed to be Tehran's unbreakable defense system without showing up on any Iranian radar. As the B-21 Raider turned Iran's command hub into rubble, the USS Abraham Lincoln and its strike group powered toward the Strait of Hormuz at full speed. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers lit up their AN/SPY-1D radars, blasting signals across the region and overwhelming Iranian sensors. This move wasn't subtle at all. They wanted to be seen. The Fifth Fleet made it clear they were the main threat, pulling all attention to the surface. Inside Iranian coastal bunkers, chaos kicked in instantly. Commanders spotted the massive U.S. carrier group pushing closer and reacted fast, activating shore-based NOR anti-ship missile systems and getting fast attack boats ready for a swarm strike. To them, this was the moment they had trained for over decades. They locked onto the USS Abraham Lincoln, convinced they finally had a real shot at a major target. But there was a problem they didn't see coming. The IRGC, overwhelmed by the size and noise of the U.S. fleet, reached out to Moscow for backup. They needed an edge they couldn't detect. They needed stealth. Russia responded quickly, knowing a direct clash with the U.S. Navy wasn't an option. Instead, they went quiet. 2 Project 6, 3 6.3 kilo-class submarines, known by NATO as black holes because of how silent they are, slipped out from the Mediterranean under cover of civilian traffic. By the time the Fifth Fleet made its loud move, those subs were already in position near the Strait of Hormuz, completely undetected. On board those submarines were Russian specialists and a dangerous payload, MDM-2 smart mines. These aren't old-school explosives just floating around waiting for anything to hit them. These are advanced thinking weapons. Once placed on the seafloor, they go into a silent standby mode, using highly sensitive acoustic and magnetic sensors to scan everything around them. They ignore civilian ships completely, staying patient and focused. What they're really waiting for is the exact sound signature of a U.S. warship, like a Ticonderoga-class cruiser or the massive propellers of a carrier. The plan was cold and calculated. Russia would help Iran create a hidden minefield right in the narrow waters of the strait, turning it into a deadly trap. One wrong move, one ship in the wrong place, and everything could change in seconds. If a U.S. carrier took a hit from below with no warning, it could stop the entire operation cold. The strait would become a danger zone overnight, and the balance of power in the region could shift fast. Russia was convinced their Kilo-class submarines were completely invisible to the Americans. They were hiding inside a thermal layer where sharp temperature changes in the water bend sonar waves and leave anything below it practically undetectable from the surface. The Russian commanders felt untouchable because they were preparing for old-school threats. They expected P-8A Poseidon patrol aircraft and traditional hull-mounted sonar. What they didn't expect was something way quieter and way smarter, the REMA 600 and the LBSG-2 Slocum glider. Weeks before any strike even happened, the U.S. Navy had already filled the strait with dozens of these autonomous underwater drones. The REMA 600 is about the size of a person and moves slow, almost like someone walking through water. It doesn't chase, it listens. Using passive hydrophones, these drones act like silent ears spread across the ocean floor. And that's how everything changed. The moment the Russian Kilo subs started moving in, their propellers gave off a unique sound, cavitation that couldn't be hidden. The underwater drone network picked it up long before the subs reached their target zone. The data didn't travel in obvious ways either. It was sent through low-probability satellite bursts straight to U.S. Fifth Fleet Command. And here's the wild part, they didn't attack. They didn't even react in a way the Russians could notice. Instead, they stayed cool and let the plan unfold. The U.S. Navy allowed the Russian submarines to deploy their MDM-2 smart mines without interference. It sounds risky, but it was actually calculated. Every time a mine hit the seafloor, those Remus drones quietly logged the exact position. Piece by piece, the U.S. built a full map of the entire minefield. Now the situation flipped completely. The Russians thought they were setting a trap, but they were actually handing over the blueprint. By staying silent, the U.S. made sure the subs stayed confident and remained in the area. Meanwhile, the Americans were preparing a move that could force those submarines into a corner with nowhere to hide. It wasn't just defense, it was control of the entire battlefield beneath the water. Back on the Iranian coast, the IRGC rolled out what they believed was their ultimate shield. 4 batteries of the Russian S-400 Triumph air defense system were positioned and ready. These systems are known for targeting stealth aircraft, with the 9-2N6E gravestone radar tracking objects up to 250 miles away and guiding missiles at extreme speeds. As the Fifth Fleet's decoy moved into range, Iranian operators locked onto what looked like an F/A-18, flying a simple, predictable path. The order was given instantly: fire. 2 4-8N6E3 missiles launched with force, tearing through the sky at nearly 3,800 miles per hour. The crews watched closely, expecting a clean hit. But something felt off. The target wasn't real. It was a trick. The B-21 Raider had already stepped in, using its advanced electronic warfare systems to manipulate the radar. It captured incoming signals, processed them in milliseconds, and sent back false images. To the S-400 system, the sky started playing games. Targets appeared, vanished, and reappeared in impossible positions. This is digital radio frequency memory jamming, and it turned the entire system against itself. One missile detonated in empty air after locking onto nothing. The other lost direction and slammed into the Persian Gulf miles away from any U.S. ship. By the time Iranian operators realized what was happening, it was too late. Their high-end defense system was completely thrown off, reacting to illusions instead of real threats. They were firing blindly into the sky while the real danger stayed hidden right above them. While those S-400 batteries kept chasing fake targets and lighting up the night for no reason, the B-21 Raider had already shifted course toward its real mission. Deep in the rough Zagros Mountains, north of Bandar Abbas, a location known as Site 14 sat quietly, about to become the next target. Inside the mountain facility, Russian technicians rushed to get everything ready, moving fast as they prepped 3 M22 Zircon hypersonic missiles for launch. These were serious weapons, built to slip past Aegis defense systems and strike before anyone could react. But while things felt tense underground, the situation inside the B-21 Raider was the complete opposite. No panic, no shouting, just calm precision. The aircraft's mission system had already absorbed detailed underground scans from a KH-11 satellite. It wasn't aiming blindly either. It had a specific target locked in, a narrow vent shaft and a weak spot in the granite ceiling sitting 60 feet below the surface. Then came the moment. The B-21's internal weapons bay opened smoothly, revealing 2 massive silver bombs ready to drop. These were GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, each weighing around 30,000 pounds. As they released, the aircraft jolted slightly, suddenly lighter by 60,000 pounds. The bombs dropped fast into the thin air above the mountains, their lattice fins snapping into place instantly. Guided by GPS and internal systems, they adjusted mid-air, flipping downward into a steep vertical dive. Within seconds, they broke the sound barrier, turning into unstoppable steel spears, driven by gravity and speed. The first GBU-57 slammed into the mountain peak at close to 800 miles per hour. The impact sent a deep, heavy shock through the entire range. Its hardened nose, built with a tough alloy mix, tore through 60 feet of solid granite in less than a second. Then came the follow-up. Just 3 seconds later, the second bomb dropped. Straight into the exact same opening. It punched through the broken rock and exploded deep inside the facility, right in the fuel storage area. That's when everything collapsed. The first blast forced intense pressure through the tunnels, turning tight corridors into violent channels of heat and force. The second explosion ignited stored liquid fuel meant for the Zircon missiles. A massive eruption followed, blasting white-hot fire and shattered rock hundreds of feet into the air. The mountain itself seemed to explode from within. Secondary blasts kept going for nearly 10 minutes as the missiles inside detonated one after another in their launch tubes. What was meant to strike a U.S. carrier group never even made it out of the mountain. The impact didn't go unnoticed. Seismic sensors across the region picked it up like a small earthquake. On board the B-21, systems confirmed the result. The hardened target was gone, replaced by scattered debris. With the mission complete, the crew shut the weapons bay, turned west, and slipped back into radar silence like nothing had happened. Just 2 bombs and a nearly invisible aircraft had wiped out what was supposed to be a secure, untouchable site. That destruction sent a clear signal far beyond the battlefield. Within minutes, U.S. leadership responded directly. The Chief of Naval Operations sent a firm message to Russia's defense officials. It included detailed sonar recordings of Kilo-class submarines placing mines, along with overhead images from the strike zone. The message was direct and serious. It stated that their involvement had been confirmed and the exact positions of their submarines were known. The warning was simple: surface and leave the strait within 30 minutes or be treated as active threats. That changed everything for Moscow. The quiet strategy had completely fallen apart. Those submarines that were supposed to stay hidden were now fully exposed and their actions were documented. There was no room left for denial. Orders were sent immediately. The Kilo-class crews were told to surface fast, executing an emergency ballast blow to bring the submarines up before the situation got even worse. Compressed air roared through the ballast tanks as the Kilo-class submarines executed an emergency blow, forcing themselves toward the surface fast. The ocean around them churned violently as these so-called black hole subs broke stealth and rose into full view. For something built to stay invisible, this was the worst possible move. And they knew it. The moment they surfaced, they were no longer shadows hiding underwater. They were exposed targets sitting in open water. Above them, the situation was already locked in. U.S. Navy P-8 Poseidon aircraft were circling at high altitude, tracking every movement with precision. Moments later, MH-60R Seahawk helicopters moved in low, hovering with their sensors trained directly on the submarines. There was no confusion, no delay. Every asset was already in place, waiting for this exact moment. The message had been clear, and now the enforcement was even clearer. The Russian crews had no room to maneuver. Their advanced stealth advantage was gone the second they hit the surface. U.S. destroyers from the Fifth Fleet adjusted position, keeping a controlled but dominant distance. You could feel the tension building across every channel. One wrong move, one misunderstanding, and things could escalate fast. But this wasn't chaos, it was controlled pressure. At the same time, something else was unfolding beneath the surface. The minefield that had been quietly deployed was no longer a mystery. U.S. underwater drones, the same Remus units that tracked the subs earlier, were already moving into action. One by one, they approached the planted MDM-2 smart mines. Using precision tools and remote systems, they began the slow process of neutralizing them. This wasn't rushed, it was careful and calculated. Each mine removed meant one less threat in the narrow strait. Back on the surface, the USS Abraham Lincoln Strike Group kept moving forward, steady and unshaken. What was supposed to be a deadly choke point was now being cleared piece by piece. The entire plan to trap the fleet had flipped completely. Instead of being blocked, the path was opening up under tight control. Every step was monitored, every risk managed. In command centers across the region, the shift was obvious. Iranian coastal units that had been on high, alert just hours earlier, were now dealing with a completely different reality. Their missile systems had failed to land a hit, their air defenses had been misled, and their support from offshore had just been forced out into the open. The pressure was still there, but the advantage was gone. And above it all, unseen once again, the B-21 Raider remained somewhere in the sky, quiet and out of reach. It didn't need to strike again. Its presence alone had already reshaped the entire situation. What started as a show of force had turned into something much bigger, a full demonstration of control across air, sea, and below the surface. The Strait of Hormuz, once on the edge of chaos, was now under a different kind of watch. Not loud, not reckless, but precise, calculated, and impossible to ignore. With their operation exposed and their most advanced systems taken out, the Russian fleet didn't stick around. They pulled back fast, turning away and leaving the Iranian fast attack units behind with zero backup. Just like that, the IRGC was on its own, facing the full force of the U.S. Navy. With the submarines gone and the air defenses thrown off, the USS Gerald R. Ford moved straight into the designated zone, fully in control of the situation. The Irani commanders, now under pressure and clearly feeling the shift, made one final move. They launched around 60 fast attack craft and Bagamar-style speedboats into the strait. These boats were quick, aggressive, and equipped with C-802 anti-ship missiles. Their strategy was simple but risky: rush in from all directions at once and overwhelm U.S. defenses through sheer numbers. A full 360-degree swarm, hoping to break through the Aegis systems protecting the fleet. But the response came fast, and it came from the air. The USS Gerald R. Ford didn't wait for those boats to close the distance. It launched a squadron of F-35C Lightning II fighters, and those jets immediately took control of the fight. Using their advanced AN/APG-81 radars and targeting systems, they spotted every single boat from nearly 50 miles away. There was no guessing, no confusion. Everything was tracked and identified in real time. And then came the strike. Instead of getting close or risking a drawn-out fight, the F-35Cs launched AGM-158CL RASM missiles from a distance. Once in the air, these missiles didn't just fly straight, they worked together. Using onboard processing, they sorted through the swarm, picking out which boats were actual threats and which ones weren't even carrying serious weapons. It was fast, calculated, and precise. Flying just about 30 feet above the water, the LRASM stayed low and nearly invisible, moving at high subsonic speed. The Iranian crews didn't see them coming. One by one, the boats were hit. Explosions lit up the water as targets were taken out before they could even react. This wasn't a close battle. It was a controlled takedown. Inside the cockpits, pilots watched as icons on their screens disappeared one after another. Out of the 60 boats that launched, only 4 were still moving after the first 10 minutes. Those remaining crews turned and tried to escape, heading back toward shore. But even that didn't work. MH-60R. Seahawk helicopters were already in position, armed and ready. As the boats fled, they were intercepted and neutralized with precision strikes. The swarm was completely shut down before it ever got near a U.S. ship. The entire engagement wrapped up in under 6 hours. In that short window, the outcome was clear. Strategies built on older systems and high-volume attacks didn't hold up. The reliance on equipment like the S-400, Kilo-class subs, and mass swarm tactics didn't deliver the results they expected. The gap in capability showed itself in real time, and it was significant. Modern systems changed everything. The B-21 Raider controlled the airspace without being seen. The F-35C acted like a central node, managing the fight with full awareness. Underwater drones tracked movements that used to go unnoticed, and long-range precision weapons handled threats before they could even get close. Every layer worked together, creating a level of coordination that's hard to counter. When submarines designed for stealth are detected early and hardened bunkers are reached from above with pinpoint accuracy, the battlefield looks very different. It becomes less about reaction and more about control. And in this scenario, control stayed firmly with the U.S. side from start to finish. This content is a dramatized scenario created to illustrate modern military capabilities and strategies in an engaging way. While it draws from real-world systems and publicly available information, certain elements are hypothetical and not a record of actual events. Dialogues, actions, and sequences are fictionalized for storytelling purposes.